As you know, this is the Measure of Episode. What makes where does our continuing mission to explore what makes Star Trek proper Star Trek? And not just kind of a sci-fi trope where not just Picard. I just realized that. Season 2. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Paul, and the criteria by which we judge these episodes, number 1, is there science fiction explored in the plot? Number 2, is that science fiction unique or novel in some way? And number 3, is there a moral or ethical dilemma? I'm Paul.
And I'm Jonathan. And this week we watched Reflections, which is episode 5 of season 3 of the Lower Decks series of the Star Trek franchise.
And the blurb is, Mariner and Boimler work the Starfleet recruitment booth at an alien job fair. Rutherford challenges himself.
Ooh, I like that. And that's cool that they kept it vague like that. Rutherford challenges himself.
My problem with it is that they buried the lead. Like, they put the A plot at the end.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
I don't consider the whole thing with Mariner and Boimler to be the main plot of the show. I guess they're the main characters, and so we want to know what they're doing with them first. But Rutherford, by far, is the star here, right?
Absolutely. In this episode, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in an episode of The Next Generation, if the episode is about LaForge, they don't talk about what Picard and Riker are doing first.
Yeah, Picard and Riker read silently in their rooms. Meanwhile, Geordi has sex with his mom, or whatever he does.
Whoa! He's had sex with a holodeck character. He's had sex with an alien. I mean, I guess most people have, though, in Star Trek.
So they do the thing in this episode where a character is having a bad... they don't normally do dreams in Star Trek, but it feels like it's a pretty heavy trope, especially in Next Gen. Not all of them, where a character will have a bad night's sleep of some kind, and then that's the conversation that kicks off the episode when they're in whatever, 10 forward or wherever they happen to be.
Right.
That happens a lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but what's interesting, too, is it's not usually because of something they're doing, it's just how they look.
Right, yeah. Somebody has to comment and maybe you're looking pretty rugged there, Geordi.
Yeah.
Why are we ragging on Geordi?
I know, poor Geordi.
But yeah, it seems to happen a lot. This takes it an extra step, I guess, because we actually get to see the scene. Man, I keep coming back to that is this called Schisms? Is that the one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I always have to remember. Yeah. Because that one's about dreams, kind of. At least they think it's about dreams, and then it ends up not being about dreams. But dreams are a big part of that episode until they're not.
Well, there was the Voyager episode, too, that was all about dreams. Remember where Harry Kim had a horrible dream where there was just that person watching him get it on with Seven, and he right. Screams and then just goes back to sleep. He's like, yeah, it's pretty normal.
Yeah, that's right. And then Chakotay takes the lead.
Yeah.
Saves the day.
Right.
By falling asleep. Yeah.
And that had a huge, 30-second wrap up. Not even 30 seconds. He's like, all right, it's going to blow up if you don't wake up. Captain's log supplemental.
Although speaking of Voyager, Jonathan, we got our answer. Do you remember the last episode? It was either one episode or 2 episodes ago. So the captain of the USS Cerritos says, I have a bunch of Geordi LaForges working for me.
Yes.
Indicating that she has a bunch of workaholics working for her and that they just can't seem to find time to relax.
Right.
And we said, wait a minute. Yeah, wait a minute. Geordi spends most of his time, spends half of his time.
Right. You actually said exactly that.
Yeah. I made we keep ragging on Geordi. I don't even mean to do it. Spends half his time in 10 forward in the holodeck, in whatever, in his quarters doing stuff. So he's really not the paragon of a hard-working Federation person that you said B'Elanna Torres was, and I said, well, wait a minute, and I said, yeah, no, wait. I'm recounting this really badly.
I think you're nailing
I said that's a good point, Jonathan. And you said, well, they don't really know about Voyager because they're not back yet. And I said, are you sure? And we said, oh, we don't know. And that was the end. We've basically recapped the last episode. But now we know that they know about Voyager.
Because they mentioned the Doctor?
No, because...
Well, he did, but okay.
Rutherford, well, I don't know. Did he mention the Doctor? What did he say about the Doctor?
he said Boimler, when he went on his rampage, he was talking about the Doctor spending 7 years in the Gamma Quadrant and gaining sentience. Like, does that mean nothing?
Oh, I totally missed that part.
Really quick note there. It would have been fun if he had said, like, does Doctor and like threw something so it broke as he said the name, so we couldn't catch what the name was. And then like talked about all of that. So like we knew which Doctor he was talking about. But because he didn't like, that would tell us that the Doctor had gained a name, but we still didn't get to know what it was.
Yeah, I think that would upset a lot of people, though, because in the canon, he's not supposed to ever have a name. That's the whole joke of the Doctor. I would like it. I agree with you. But the idea that there's a name out there somewhere that he eventually chose, because the Doctor will live forever.
Right.
His ego will not allow him. He won't go the route of Data, where he says, please kill me.
Right.
That will never happen.
You know how you can just casually say computer delete program? And it does?
But see, here's the weird part. We're going to get back to Voyager in a second, everybody.
And then get back to Lower Decks.
Here's the weird part about when people say that on the holodeck or whatever they say that about. I don't think when they say delete program, they mean entirely erase it from the ship. I think they mean stop the program. Like this particular thing, stop doing it. Well, because they say that all the time, and then the next day they'll resume it. They say end and they say delete. They seem to be interchangeable, though. Because at times that they will come back to either if they're deleting a character or a place or whatever, they'll come back to it later. So I don't know how you actually get rid of a program or a character entirely so it never exists again.
Right.
There's no answer to that because no one's ever been smart enough to ask the question.
Exactly. But my question is, since the Doctor is somewhat sentient, could he delete his own program? Or would the computer ignore it because he is the program asking to delete itself?
I think he'd have to write a program to delete his program.
Right.
It's a very good point. But I feel like the Doctor would never do that because he's too vain.
Sure. I would agree with that.
Too egocentric. What were we talking about?
You were talking about the reference of Voyager in Lower Decks, besides the Doctor.
Right. So Rutherford builds the Delta Flyer in his dream state race.
Oh,
with his
yeah.
alternate
right,
psyche. He even says Tom Paris designed this with, I think he says like Borg technology. No, he says Delta Quadrant technology. So we have our answer.
Yeah.
So they know at least in as much that the Delta Flyer has been built and that there has been conversations with Voyager.
Right.
If they're not back yet.
Yeah. So it may just be to that point where they know that Voyager is safe and they've uploaded all of the captain's logs and documenting what they've learned so far, but they're not actually back yet.
Right. But I'm glad they had two Voyager
Right?
references in this.
Well, and I feel
That never happens.
I feel kind of dumb that I didn't know where you were going with that until you said that he built Delta Flyer, and I was like, oh, right, yeah. They specifically called out Tom Paris and his like flight uniform for the Delta Flyer.
Right. Yeah. So we know. We got that answer to our question.
That's true. That's true.
You seem not as happy as I thought you would be. I was elated when I was like, hey, this never happens. We never get an answer like this.
Well, especially immediately following our question.
I know.
Like our question wasn't even deeply rooted in the episode where the writers were like, "Oh, we should answer that question." It was just something that came up in our conversation, and then the next episode satisfied that. But yeah, like I'm not elated. I'm satisfied. It was something that I didn't think about until you just mentioned it again. But I feel content that it's been answered. I'm not like, yeah.
Well, that's what I was like.
Clearly. Okay. Right. Bouncing on your couch, punching the air.
I'm shaking Jesse. Do you know what this means? Do you know what this means?
Do you realize what you've done?
Okay, so anyway, back to the actual episode, because we jumped ahead a little bit.
We did, just a little bit.
Yeah. So the main plot is that Rutherford, his personality splits, and we have this kind of interesting alter ego that pops up. But there's this dynamic where I guess it's not really that he can see him in the reflection, but more that the actual Rutherford is aware of what's going on, but is powerless to stop anything in terms of this alter ego taking control of his body.
Right.
And by taking control of his body, I mean turning into a jet from West Side Story.
Oh. I thought you were going to say from Mask or
Wow, I walked away at the wrong moment in this episode, if that's what happens.
Well, I just thought that you were going off the rails on that. So,
Because he is kind of a jet. Or what's the other one?
a shark.
A shark, right. He's more of a jet, I think.
Really?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, well, you can't be kind of a jet, because when you're a jet all the way.
That's a good point. But what are you when you're a shark?
I don't remember that verse, so maybe through and through. I don't know.
Oh yeah, you're shark through and through. Doesn't really roll off the old tongue there. Anyway,
I know. This has been the measure of a musical.
okay, so going to, I have a bit of a gripe
Okay.
about Mariner, because I think it's safe to say that her character does the exact same thing in every episode now, where she's assigned to something that she finds to be lame or not worth her time. She, in some way or fashion, finds someone or something to be mad about, proclaims that she is going to get back or do something about it angrily, is angry for a lot of the episode, and then someone bails her out in some way, reversing her hubris, as it were.
Right.
She then apologizes to that person. Repeat.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It feels that way, right? Like it feels like that's kind of every single arc for her in every single episode.
Right.
Which is just having an anger problem, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which I also think was addressed in like the first season, but I obviously having anger issues is something you have to spend a lot of time confronting and working through. But it's just interesting that I do feel like it was addressed in the first season, and then there's been nothing really to progress her character in regards to that since.
Well, and I'm wondering, is this just the way animation is, or this particular animation is, where that is the lever by which they are able to do comedy? You know, they have this character who never changes, which is true for any animation. If you think about it, no character ever changes in animation. Otherwise, right. I mean, totally, right? So I guess that's just what we're going to have to deal with, which is fine. I mean, it's not like it's a gripe in that they just seem to be repeating it over and over and over again. Like if you think about Family Guy, Peter gets into a lot of different hijinks problems, but they're different. Like there's a lot of different facets to his idiocracy, right. I guess. And so, you know, if you think about that, I mean, granted, that's really my biggest exposure to animation is Family Guy. That's probably the one I've watched the most of.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So I might be wrong on that because it's a different kind of comedy. I don't know. What do I know? You know all this. You should be talking.
Well, yeah, it's not something that's typically called out on cartoons. I mean, characters in most shows don't typically show growth beyond aging in, you know, sitcoms and
toenails.
Yeah, sitcoms and toenails. Yep.
No, they don't show growth much beyond toenails. Their toenails grow.
Right. I'm with you. I appreciate you explaining it.
And fingernail. Well, you know, you're not the only person I'm talking to. There's 2 or 3 other people.
I love that question of you have fingertips but not toe tips, but you can tiptoe but not tip finger.
Well, when would you need to tip finger?
I don't know. Why aren't they called toe tips?
They're not called toe tips.
Why aren't they?
Oh, that's a better question.
I thought so. Anyway, where were we? Man, that was a rabbit hole.
Okay, so anyway, maybe it is that in animation, the characters are part of... Pardon me. Maybe it is in animation that the characters are part of the setting, and that, you know, you want to explore the comedy in that setting, and that setting is part of the character. So the characters, I guess you could say that about anything, though. Couldn't you? It's just that they don't seem to change as much. Like I don't feel like I know Mariner after having seen 4 or 5 episodes of her than if I were to watch 5 episodes of Strange New Worlds. And I know that's not fair, but it's a little fair.
Yeah, no, I would compare it more to 5 episodes of the original series. which I guess is also kind of unfair because that was kicking it off. And this is now, 40 years, right? No, 60 years into the Star Trek lore. But yeah, I mean, we haven't seen whatever. All this circles back around too. That was a really good point. That's kind of her story arc in every episode. We've seen Boimler get bolder. We've now seen Rutherford have a major character change with like a huge mystery arc to him. We see Tendi training to become a senior officer, and we see Mariner,
which got dropped.
Who? It got dropped hard. Which it doesn't. I mean, I guess it doesn't need to be addressed in every episode, but at the same time, I feel like it should, just so we know what's going on, and it's not like, hey, what happened to that plot thread?
So anyway, that's all to say that. So there's this scene where the Mariner plotline, Boimler Mariner plotline, kind of gets thrown on its side, where it's not Mariner who explodes in outrage, but Boimler.
Yes.
And Boimler starts destroying this weird farmer's market of job fair.
Right. It's a job fair.
And it's really funny that the Federation recruits, or I guess Starfleet recruits. The Federation is not. That's the wrong word. Starfleet is recruiting. And so this idea that they're exposed to all of these different places you can go find jobs or you can pay money. I don't know. It's unclear what everybody there is doing.
Yeah, I thought it more like recruited in a scouting way, not in a come work for us, but in a like,
right, here's a pamphlet.
Yeah, but in like a, you have proved yourself to be the best of the best. Now we want you to be the worst of the best in Starfleet.
Right. Are they really that desperate for personnel that they are setting up farmers markets?
Right. Well, and with everything that was said, maybe it has gone downhill. People, that's the view of Starfleet, and so they're trying to find new recruits because people don't want to be assimilated.
Well, if we're to kind of extrapolate from what we know from this episode, Petra, the Indiana Jones character with the really ornate booth,
right.
Which is,
it's just a plethora of Easter eggs. I'm not even going to go into it, but yeah.
I know that's my long arc point. I'm getting there, but just a second.
Okay. Sorry.
So there's this idea that Petra starts pointing out that, hey, you guys are just a military, right? That's all you guys are, as though it's a complaint or a derision, right?
Right.
That you guys keep pretending like you're not military, that you're not a navy, and yet this is what you do. You go and attack people, etc.
Yeah.
There's this weird undercurrent of protest for Starfleet. And I thought that was interesting. And it could be that there is because in Star Trek, we're kind of to believe that everybody holds Starfleet and the Federation in the highest regard. That there is no greater purpose and greater endeavor to learn more, to find new people, to make new friends, to discover more recipes. But it's this heightened sense. It's the idealistic life, and being a member of Starfleet has the highest level of
prestige.
Prestige, yeah. So that has never been challenged. But this episode does kind of lend that maybe there's an undercurrent of dissent from Starfleet, that maybe they're suffering in terms of their numbers and they need to recruit in this weird way because they just can't find enough people because their reputation has been sullied,
right,
because of their hijinks, as it were.
Well, and I love Boimler's call out about that. He's like, do you think we want to protect you from the Klingons and the Romulans? Like, we want to explore nebulas and quasars.
Yeah, and it seems like you could look at it two ways. That Boimler's right. We want to go explore, but we have to keep protecting you from all of the dangers of living in a multi-star, multi-race universe. Or the other way, which is that Boimler and Mariner have drunk the Kool-Aid.
Right.
Drank the Kool-Aid?
Have drunk.
They have drunk Kool-Aid. And so it's interesting. I mean, this is not what they intended at all, right? But it does have some consequences in my mind. That, maybe Petra is right. Now, it turns out that her message is a bit subverted because it turns out that Mariner was right, that she just wanted to go steal something from whatever, right?
Right.
And that's exactly what she did. So maybe my entire theory is wrong, but that whole thing it's just very interesting to me, right? That maybe there is some sort of undercurrent of dissent happening in the, what do you call it when you're not in the military?
Civilians?
Civilian, yeah. Civilian population.
Yeah.
No? Yeah.
You may be completely onto something because every show that we've seen has basically been from the Starfleet perspective. You know, this is kind of the only one that's ever shown anything a little bit outside of Starfleet. And even there, it's still in Starfleet. It's just the lower decks, you know? And so, of course, through the lens of Starfleet, everyone's going to love Starfleet.
Right, exactly. Although it seems like Mariner is kind of disgruntled. It seems like she thinks that she's better than her position, or it's hard to tell. I don't have a good sense of her, probably because I haven't watched enough of the episode or the show.
Right.
That is she disgruntled because she's unhappy with her position, or is she just an angry person, right?
Yeah. And I think all of that does get addressed in the first season. Let me rephrase that. I think it all gets acknowledged in the first season and explained, but it doesn't get resolved or addressed through the rest of the series. You know, it says this is why Mariner is the way she is, and the audience and the writers just kind of go, okay, so now that we've established that, let's keep writing her the same way.
Right. Yeah, I understand why, because now they have a good momentum with these characters that people seem to like, so let's ride the wave for as long as possible.
Yeah.
I get it.
As enjoyable as her character is, I would just like to see some more growth beyond, I'm sorry I got so angry. This is why I was angry. You know, maybe have her actually mellow out a little bit, resolve some of the issues with her mom, and be the creative person that she was in season 1 without the anger. And I feel like, yes, you can get very comfortable with writing a character once you know them that way, but it also provides new stories and new challenges to the plots and the writers when you change the characters, not motivation, but when you resolve the conflict within the character and then you have to create a new one.
Boy, do I have a solution for you.
Okay. Hit me with it.
Because here's what the next episode should be.
Hit me with it.
Mariner follows through with the request from Petra, or the invitation from Petra to go with her and go explore some caves and stuff, to be an Indiana Jones with her, to be her short round, as it were. Right? So we jump ahead a year in the next episode. That's what Mariner's doing.
Okay.
Boimler is second in command to Captain Ransom on the USS Compton.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Yep. Because we leave this episode as Ransom sort of buddying up to, or at least finding new respect for Boimler because of how he gave it to those dissenters type of thing. Okay? Rutherford is undercover about to expose a huge Starfleet conspiracy, i.e. the whole mystery as to who he was working for, what happened, why they blew him up, and why they decided he needed to have his memory wiped and turned into a robot, right?
Okay.
So we fast forward through all of these different things, and we've now come to the conclusion. I guess, I don't know, we're going to be in episode 6 next week.
Yeah.
So you have 4 episodes to have that arc and then reset at the end of it. Right, somehow they managed to all make their way back to the Cerritos.
To a year ago?
Yeah. Yeah. Where Tendi is a waitress or something. I don't know. She seems underutilized, so we're gonna take that to an extreme, and she works in the mess hall.
Right, from senior officer to mess hall. Well, and that would be the other thing too. I don't think they're going to do that in the next episode. I do think that, again, this kind of goes back to what was that episode where maybe the rock thing, but I feel like they leave cookie crumbs through the season that get resolved at the end. So I think that Petra is going to come back. I think that there may be some deeper connection. So going with what we know so far, I think that Mariner is going to join Petra, and they're going to discover that there is like a Starfleet underground black market for passing on the technology to keep the battles going. Or, something like that. Maybe like Section 31 is playing a much bigger part in all of this.
Well, I think there was a reason why Petra left, because they set up that she was sort of a successful officer, and that she left for a reason, and now she's living a life of crime.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that be interesting? And my point is that's how you bring the character into, you don't keep repeating the character's same old thing.
Right. Right.
You put her into a new situation and let her be different.
Yeah.
But that seems awfully drastic. But that's what I want to see.
Well, I think it may be more like a Tom Paris thing where she deflects for a mission, or she kind of runs away from her mom, as it were, and does like not a mission, but does a hunt or two with Petra, and realizes that like as much as she detests Starfleet, she prefers defying order than living in chaos.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think will happen this season is that these breadcrumbs will actually tie together later on, just because they have done that previously. Whereas like Next Generation, when somebody's like, you could always come with me, Picard's like, no, my duty is to Starfleet. And they're like, okay, bye. And there's no lingering reflection on him where he like, the door is left open, as it were.
Right. I wish I could have gone. But the thing is, with animation, you can go do that.
Right. And I think
it's
will.
Not any more expensive to go do that, because with live action, you have sets built, you have cast, and you have, right? Like it's way harder to plan for something like that because you have to make all new sets and all new costumes and all new locations. Right. But with this, you just draw new shit.
Yeah.
So they could totally do stuff like that. I don't know why they don't, because I feel like this paradigm, like already you can tell, like with the whole Rutherford plotline, takes place all on his head.
Yeah.
Right? Not really something, not really even, it's not really science fiction. It reminds me a little bit more of like a Stephen King thing.
Well, and I like that young Rutherford even calls it out. He's like, oh, great, we're in a mindscape. And the older one is like, a mindscape? Yeah.
Yeah. So they're already kind of trying to think of out of the box ways for these to give these characters something to do.
Mm-hmm.
So why not mix up the bottle a little bit? What?
Store that lightning in your back pocket.
But yeah, I like the idea that you could estrange Mariner from her mom, and they could be enemies for a little while. Wouldn't that be? I mean, they're already enemies, I guess. Kind of,
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely butt heads, but
they're definitely butt heads.
I was hoping you wouldn't hear that.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know what their plan is. I think that they can't just keep doing this thing, right? I mean, maybe that's what people like. I don't know. I mean, it feels like if you're going to make a Star Trek episode or a Star Trek show, you need to mix it up a little bit every once in a while.
Yeah.
And they have a great opportunity to do that. It seems like they're setting us up for that, especially with the whole Petra thing and the Rutherford thing.
Yeah.
But so going back for a second. So this is where my anxiety comes from watching the show. I know that every single booth, every single person that walked up to Boimler, and during his outrage, everything that he destroyed, everything that he used to destroy everything with, is a reference. I know it. I know that's the case. I recognized almost none of them. Because I don't have enough time. I mean, I'm sure there's a subset of the lower decks watching public that gets all of these references. There must be somebody. One person must do it, right?
Oh, I would imagine more than one, but yeah.
All of them, though? Without researching every single one?
Right. Oh, I know. And so I don't know if you've watched any of the reviews after.
I mean, like Will Wheaton in the
no, that's kind of like the the talk back at the end, kind of just talking about the episode. No, the ones that do highlight these things, there are some that come out hours after the episode is done, and they point out almost everything. Occasionally they'll miss one or two, but it's just like, do you have multiple people on staff that know all these different things, or is there one person who just knows all of these things?
Well, the references themselves don't seem to follow any order. It's almost as if they're closing their eyes, pointing to a DS9 episode and pulling something out of that episode to put in the show. Like there's no rhyme or reason as to these references. So it would be fairly easy to populate the lower decks episodes with references.
Right.
But the idea that these people who are coming up with these reviews and somehow getting all of the references, I don't know, it just seems impossible to me. It's almost like maybe they're pausing and being like, "Oh, that looks familiar. What is that thing?" Or they're Googling while they're watching or something like that. There's got to be that.
I feel like there's more to say about Rutherford because I feel like we barely said anything about him. But I don't know what else I have to say about him.
I don't think there is. I think it
Okay.
was just an interesting episode in that there is this background that we don't know about, that I'm assuming we just learned about just now.
Well, there was that episode previously where they had to reboot his memory and he saw that glimpse, and he was like, whoa, I think I just saw something I wasn't supposed to see, and then they had to rush off to do something else.
And it seems like they've been seeding that his implants are malfunctioning since the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So,
I think of the series.
oh really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
I know. I think so. I'm not positive. But the other part to that too is now that this has been settled, I wonder if those glitches are going to stop or if they're still going to happen and we're actually finding out something else about why it's glitching.
Yeah, maybe he gets some other superpower.
Right. Well, he did. There was an episode where his system had to keep rebooting, and every time it rebooted, he woke up in a different situation where he was just a badass between his blackouts.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm intrigued. I want to see more. Now that they have some sort of intrigue happening, I want to see more of the show, Does it at all compel you to watch more, or are you really in it mostly for the comedy?
Oh, good question. I came for the comedy. I'm staying for the intrigue.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So I don't think this is a proper Star Trek episode.
Oh no? Because of which criteria? If any, I would say number 3, but
Number three, I felt like there was the moral dilemma. Do I save my alter ego in this weird construct from the Romulans? And he chose to. I guess he didn't really, there was never any question. He just kind of did it.
right.
So maybe not. Wasn't really a lot of novel science fiction in this because it was all kind of happening in his head. We've seen it a million times where there is some sort of duality between one person,
Right.
not necessarily in Star Trek, but just that concept was not technological. It was just there's two people, one dominant and one passive, and it switched. I didn't get the sense that was because of the tech, although it was kind of unclear. I don't know. I mean, I didn't. His tech is always malfunctioning,
Right.
but was his alter ego inside of the tech?
Well,
And it
yeah, so that's
ultimately
what
mattered.
they were saying. They were saying that his old memories were stored in the headgear and the computer brain couldn't hold two personalities and two lifestyles. And so one of them had to go.
I guess that's true.
But I don't remember there being an explanation of it. And that's kind of one of those things like, is the sci-fi explored?
It's only explored in that it's happening, and that's what the episode is about. It's not necessarily explored as science fiction.
Right.
It's just this is what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, I agree.
Did you think it was when you were watching?
No, I don't know. Is avoiding a punishment a moral dilemma? Like, I want to behave a certain way, but I also don't want to be sent to Starbase 80.
Well, isn't she always kind of acting under the threat of being punished?
Yeah, like being court-martialed or being thrown to the bridge.
She's
yeah.
always against the rules. It's almost like that's what her default state is.
Yeah. Well, and the punishment is never as bad as she thinks it's going to be for one reason or another.
Right, and the hardest part about all this was apologizing to her friends.
Yeah, but they've all grown. They've all learned something that day. They've all grown a little that day, and they'll forget it all tomorrow.
That day. Okay, well, have we had a proper Star Trek episode?
I don't think this
this-
season. I'd have to go back
Yeah.
and check. I don't think this season we have. I know that one of the ones from the previous seasons that we watched was a proper Star Trek episode,
Okay,
but
all right.
not today.
Well, we're gonna keep trying. We're gonna keep looking.
Yeah, I think that Lower Decks is probably going to be the series that has the least amount of proper Star Trek and the most amount of enjoyable episodes.
Probably, it satisfies. It tickles our Star Trek balls, and without having to really dive deep. Like Strange New Worlds has the problem of to achieve a certain level of intensity to be really good, and that's probably pretty hard to sustain. Whereas this is more formulaic,
Right.
so not as difficult when you are operating that way.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Well,
I've been
until
Jonathan.
Next time.
Yeah.
Wait, we didn't say we were watching next.
Okay.
I have to make this joke every single episode.
Right. And the random generator picked Lower Decks, season 3, episode 6.
Oh, how serendipitous that we just watched that.
Right. I know.
But, Lower Decks.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been Jonathan.
And I've been Paul.
And this has been The Measure of an Episode. You gonna do something gruff?
That's the only thing I know how to do. Hey, but you already knew that.
Was that ransom?
No, that's the...
Don't tell me that...
Oh. Okay.
Let the audience try to figure it out.
I like that you asked a question and I started answering it. Don't tell me.